Right, 19 April 2020, and today I want to give you my opinion on whether the South African government is ready to lift the lockdown in just under 2 weeks. So, this is very important because South Africa is the biggest economy in Southern Africa, and whatever they do, all the other governments are going to follow. So, what has been happening is that in South Africa, they've closed the borders, they've closed the airports, they've closed all non-essential businesses except for food and the health sector. That is most of the businesses that are open now are in the food sector, so you can go to the shop and buy your food. And I've been out in the past 4 weeks, I've been out about 2 times. And when I went to the shops, what is happening is that people are out, but not as usual. So there's a very small amount of people, and people cannot move around as couples. So one person goes in a house, one person goes to the shop. When you get to the shop, let's say you go to a Checkers or a Woolworths, you will find out that if you get to 10 or maybe 20 in a shop, they will stop you from getting into the shop. They'll make you wait outside in a queue, and you have to be 1 meter apart. So you can't all be in the shop at the same time, which is good. The people that operate the tills, you'll find out that they've got plastic masks across their faces, so in front of their faces, and people are very careful. People don't want to be close to each other. So there's a new culture of not wanting to be near each other. People are observing social distancing naturally. Now, the problem is the number of infections has been increasing. So in South Africa, the number of infections has been increasing. And when it happens, it affects a lot of people at the same place at the same time. So let me give you an example. Yesterday, we reported that 24 people at Dis-Chem Boksburg were staff, they were infected. So if 24 people are infected, you know that whoever comes into contact with them will also be infected. So one infection of coronavirus normally causes another 100 infections. That is what has been happening, for example, in the United States. So that means from those 100, you are going to have 2,400 people that are going to be infected. If everything was normal, if the lockdown was not there, that means 2,400 people will be infected from just those 24 people, and then the number will just blow out from there. There were 2 hospitals that had to be closed in KZN. I think those were Netcare hospitals, where a big number of people, over 50 staff members, were infected at one hospital. So this disease is very easy to transmit from one person to another. The good thing is that in South Africa, the disease has not been very, what can I say? The people that got the disease, they were not critical. So it was mild. There's some sort of mild infection. So out of the 3,000 people that were infected in South Africa, there were 50 people who died. Unfortunately, I don't have information of whether they had underlying conditions or not. So 2 hospitals closed, many people in the same place infected. If you go to KZN again, at Ballito Junction, at Checkers, 1 employee was infected, and they had to close the Checkers there for a day and clean it and disinfect it. Similarly, if you go to Woolworths PE, the 1 employee was infected, and they had to close and disinfect the place. So what is happening is we have a lot of people getting infected. The disease is being caught very quickly, and action is being taken. There were also people in an informal settlement who had gone to a funeral. 6 people got infected. There were people at a church, and maybe 10 people got infected. So this is how we got to the 3,000. When people are in a group, it's very easy to infect each other. Now, this lockdown has been helping. It has been keeping people away from each other. So, keeping the lockdown will keep the infections down. It will keep the deaths down. But can South Africa afford to keep the economy down, the economy locked down? And this is where I think it's going to be very difficult. People are struggling as it is. There are many people who work contract work. The CCMA has reported that over 43,000 domestic workers were unfairly dismissed. So they just told to go home. We cannot pay you because there's lockdown. They are also receiving 5,000 or more unfair dismissal complaints every week. This is because some companies can just not afford to pay you if you're not working. So there are also people that work informal work, like Uber drivers, people that deliver food. Restaurants are closed. People who rely on tips, they're not working. So it's not possible from an employee point of view to sustain this lockdown. The South African economy relies on people that get paid for working. If they don't work, they don't get paid. There are a lot of people that work like that. I can put that number at above 50% of the population. Similarly, there are small businesses that only get paid when they work. Shop fitters, cleaning companies, those kind of companies, they can only get paid when they work. And at the moment, they're not working. Even the bigger companies are closed. If you look at the airport, look at how busy that place is. So that place will be closed. Manufacturing companies that don't make food will be closed. Mining companies will be closed. So it's not sustainable to keep the economy closed for longer than they've already kept it closed, which is going to be a push factor. The economy in South Africa has to be reopened, and I do not see a further extension of this lockdown because the economy just can't take it. Now, what is going to happen if they reopen? If the economy in South Africa is reopened, the lockdown is lifted, there's going to be a spike in the number of coronavirus infections. So that is to be expected. The CSIR in South Africa has already said that there's going to be a major spike in the number of infections. And what they're doing is they're preparing for that spike in the number of coronavirus infections through a system that they have. They've got a monitoring system and big screens in their data center or call center where they'll be monitoring hotspots. So they expect a lot of hotspots. You should expect to go to a shopping mall and find a certain shop closed or the whole mall closed. It won't be normal business as usual because as more people start to walk around, they start to get into contact with people who are infected, and as more people get infected, they infect other people. This is not going to be an easy period. Between now and December, it's going to be very difficult. And as we go into winter, it's going to get worse because it seems this disease is easier to transmit when it's cold. If schools reopen, it's even worse because if a child comes from a home where he's infected or she's infected, there's going to infect another child, and that child is going to go and infect parents in another home who are going to infect other people where they go. It's not easy. What is going to happen is going to be hectic, and we might end up seeing another lockdown further on down the road because you never know how prevalent this thing becomes and how it affects other people. There's also the issue of public transport. Taxis, trains, aeroplanes, when these start to move around, there's going to be a large number of people infected. And also informal settlements, as people are allowed to move around, they're going to start infecting other people. So the decision to reopen is basically made for the South African government in terms of they cannot sustain closing the economy. However, solving the coronavirus infection problem is not going to be easy. They will have to lift on economic basis, but they cannot lift because coronavirus has been eliminated. In fact, it's going to get worse. We're going to get to see more reports of infections and more places will be closed. one day a certain place will close, many people will still work from home. So companies will have to come up with ways of working from home. It's not going to be good for a company to get an infection, because the moment you get an infection, then you get forced to close. So it would be better for you to just have a plan to say, all my employees that can work from home, they should continue to work from home, which also makes it very difficult. Because if you're working from home, your service providers cannot provide services. So people who are in the service provision industry, they're going to have a very, very difficult time. So we're going to see a reopening very, very soon, a lifting of the lockdown, but how it is going to be done is going to be quite different from what we think, because there will be other lockdowns happening in smaller places, in small areas, as they are forced to do so. And already the economy is going to suffer a lot. There's also the issue of how do you cater for all those people that have lost their jobs? How does it affect purchasing decisions? So people are not going to be buying new cars. People are not going to be buying new houses. People who lose their jobs are just basically going to be losing their property if nothing gets done. So the government might have to come out with a bailout for individuals and for companies. It's going to be very, very difficult this year. The coronavirus is going to be with us for a very, very long time. And many people are going to feel the impact at a personal level. Right. So, in my view, the lockdown in South Africa is soon going to be lifted, but it will only be an economic decision. So, from an elimination of the disease point of view, that will not happen. In fact, it will get worse. Now, looking at the borders, the border with Zimbabwe and Mozambique, I do not see that border being opened very, very soon, especially if the Zimbabwe government decides to lift their lockdown sooner than the South Africans. Testing is not happening in Zimbabwe. The South Africans might be thinking, should we open this border? They could keep that border closed for longer, only allow outwards traffic, but not inwards traffic. And I guess the same will have to happen at the airport. How long will it take before they allow people from coronavirus affected countries to come into South Africa? Very, very interesting period, but sad also at the same time, because it's hitting a lot of people at a personal level. Right. Thank you very much for watching. If you're watching this on WhatsApp, please send it to as many people as possible. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, please like, comment, and share.